licking a chocolatey vagina. Interesting. I hope my friend is on a work call in the other room. Like, I really hope it's not like a serious call and they can hear me. I'm like, chocolatey vagina licking. Have sex in an elevator. Having sex with 10 women, getting head one by one, having sex in a row, and coming on all faces. Oh, shit. Welcome to What I Love About Sex, where some incredible guests and I, Steph Kanowski, will be bringing you the tools for improving your sex life with topics such as sex issues with your partner, sexual self-confidence, premature ejaculation, sexual shame, masturbation, sharing your fetishes, orgasmic pleasure, and more. Sex is still so taboo, and I personally believe that by improving our understanding and communication skills around sex, we can enhance our own self-pleasure as well as deepening our long-term romantic relationships. So listen in, try to stay open-minded, and let's get started. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on the What I Love About Sex podcast. So, today's going to be a fun episode because we're going to talk about fantasies, and I did a Q&A on Instagram the other day, and I asked you guys, what is your top fantasy? I got so many responses, and they're almost all different. I shouldn't say almost all. There's like a few consistent ones, which I'll let you know what they are. But the whole point of this is to show you guys that fantasies are healthy. Sexual fantasies are very healthy. They're very normal, and you don't always have to act on them. Most people do not act on them, and they're just a mental, conscious image of you satisfying your sexual needs. So whether you're having sexual fantasies during the act of sex, and you're just thinking about something to help get you off, great, cool. If you're using fantasies to help get off while you masturbate, or simply just not even to get off, just to feel good, just to have that consistent fantasy in your head that excites you. People use their fantasies at different times for different reasons, and just know that they're healthy and they're normal. Research actually shows that asexual people actually fantasize about sex, which is interesting. It just goes to show that it's not always even having to do with a very sexual person. You know, you don't have to be hypersexual to have sexual fantasies. The average person has at least one fantasy. I've actually heard a few guys though saying my partner doesn't have any. And I suppose this could be true, but I think it depends on what your definition of a fantasy is, you know, because even asexual people are having fantasies. And if you fantasize, or what gets you sexually excited is more so vanilla type sex, which is fine. And some people do get excited by that when they think about it, then that's your top fantasy. Right? So fantasies don't have to be crazy, right? They don't have to all be shocking and taboo, but those are the most popular. So let's look at I'm going to share with you the most popular ones, and then I'm going to take you through the Q&A responses, or all the answers I got from you guys on Instagram who replied. I can't go through all of them, but I'm going to go through the most, just the ones that speak to me, and we'll just go down the line and yeah, have some fun with that because they're really cool. I was getting really excited. Not in that way. I was just like, oh shit, I didn't know like people fantasized about that. Like, oh my God, that's so interesting. You know, so you'll probably find the same and maybe even feel better about having certain fantasies. So, all right, the most common ones are, research says the most common sexual fantasies include group sex. So threesome is a very popular fantasy. Rough BDSM, taboo activities like sex in public, romanticism, and gender-bending sex. So you'll find that there's some repetition in the responses I got from you guys with some gender-bending and and taboo, especially. So let's hop into those right now. Oh, before I hop into them, another thing I want to share is, because I'm sure you guys have the question of, should I share my fantasy with my partner? Is that a good idea? And this can be risky because, first of all, you have to ask yourself, do I really want this fantasy to come true? Or do I want to just keep it a fantasy? Most of the time when we try to make our fantasy come true, it just doesn't happen the same way. And then it ruins the fantasy for us and we just lose the fantasy, right? Or, or damn it, what was my other point? Or you can ask your partner, you can try to make the fantasy happen, and then your partner's just not for it, or they judge you for it. And then not only does it ruin the fantasy, just as the fantasy ever coming into reality, or sexually exciting you anymore, but now you carry a certain amount of shame if you allow their judgment to get to you. So you just want to be careful in terms of, am I comfortable? Like, ask yourself, am I comfortable sharing this fantasy with my partner, regardless of possibly getting a judgmental reaction from them? If you're okay with that and you're like, you know what, they might judge me, fuck it, I'm going to share it anyway because it's worth it to me and I trust them and I want to share it, then cool, share it. If you find benefit in sharing it, share it. If you don't and you want to keep it to yourself for the rest of your life, cool, do that. Whatever makes you feel best about yourself and about the fantasy, go with that. All right, so let's dive into these. All right, so here's a specific one. Giving oral sex to my partner out in the mountains of Colorado. All right, love it. What a beautiful setting. Threesome. Someone to love me. 3 or 4-some. A woman being totally submissive. Yep, I could see that. Come on her face. Never did it. Wake up and she's on top already banging me. Sex in forbidden places. Twins. Yeah, twins. Okay, yeah. To be dominated. Some are more serious. Like this one, he says, talking to my girl without her being anxious about losing me. Isn't that interesting? This one says ropes, melted candle wax, cum lube, and a dildo with a cum tube. All for her. And then a photo shoot. Oh, damn. Role play never gets old. That's what someone else says. Any woman wearing pantyhose. Pantyhose is a really common fetish. So there are a lot of men with pantyhose related fantasies. So totally normal. Let's see if I can. Oh, okay. Yeah. Scroll better. Let's see. Open my partner up to be more kinky. Sex in a place that's not a bedroom. Anal with an older lady who hasn't had much anal experience. So I'm not sure what he means by older lady, but I know there was another guy in here who said sex with a woman 70 or older. So, hey, to each their own. Everyone has their own fantasies. They're all normal. Hot oil sex massages, working into long, slower, deep penetrating, grinding sex. And going back to the older lady one, some of you are probably a little grossed out. Some of you are like, yeah, that's normal. I have that too. Some of you are a little curious how that can turn someone on. But just so you know, like an eye-opening factor for me recently was studying squirting, right? And the bodily mechanics of squirting, what it takes for a female to ejaculate. And one of the story examples, and I'm doing this through sexology school, which I'm currently in and studying. So one of the examples was this woman in her 70s who kept wetting the bed, and she was all embarrassed, and she was like, she didn't realize she was ejaculating so much, and it was not pee, it was female ejaculation, and she was just a very heavy squirter, and she squirted most of her life, but at this point in her life, it just became more heavy and more obvious during sex. And I was just in shock, like, holy shit. First of all, I always had in my head, and this is a little like embarrassing for me to share, that I just like thought people stopped having sex after like 60s. right? But that's not true. And like most of the sex studies that people do include ages, it's usually ages 17 to 80 or 17 to 84. That's usually how the research goes in terms of ages that they study and do research on. So it's really opened my eyes and actually made me more excited to age, because as I speak to more women in their 50s and hear these stories about women in their 70s where they still have, like, they still get super horny, they still have great sex, they still are naturally lubricated, some of them, some not, but that's what lube is for. Awesome. And it just goes to show that, like, we don't just shut off as sexual beings. We keep going, right? And even at these ages later in life, I know I'm talking about women, you guys, majority of you guys listening are men, but like, we don't just stop being sexual beings, and you don't just stop having fantasies. So it's just, I think it's a good message to hang on to and be like, all right, cool. Like, it's going to be with me for a while. Like, I'm good. All right. Anyway, getting back to it. Cuckold. All right. This is a common one, guys. I've seen cuckold in here multiple times. And if you guys don't know what a cuckold is, this is a fantasy where the guy is watching his woman get fucked by other men. So yeah, it may seem like, oh, like that's pathetic, blah, blah, blah. I know there are guys on opposite ends of the spectrum, right? This is either very popular with a lot of guys, or guys feel like, oh, that guy's like, you know, and there's all this judgment from it. But just know that, like, if this is your fantasy, you don't have to hold on to judgment, because it is so popular. So even though you might have heard of these things, like guys judging you or heard men judging you for it, it is super popular, very common fantasy. Don't carry any shame around it. It is fine. You're still masculine. You could still be a masculine dominant man and want this. Okay. And even if you don't want to be dominant, like, fuck it. You know, you don't have to do that either. All right. Threesome, again. Many different women at a time, body types and shapes. To feel loved is a fantasy, right? So some people are just literally fantasizing about someone looking into their eyes and feeling loved by them. And that's their most arousing fantasy. So it's not always super taboo. You know what I mean? Letting the wife do butt stuff, but to me. All right. Yeah. A lot of guys too, who want more, anal action. Anal or threesome with two girls. Having my insecurities embraced by my partner, who essentially loves me for myself. All right. To watch my wife and another woman pleasure each other. Having a threesome with my wife. There's more on that one, but for another day. Just a girl having the best body she can have. Outdoors in the woods. Threesome. To be cucked. Teacher and student. Spontaneous BJ, rim job, deep kissing, throw in the nipple play. Threesome with two women and one guy. The women are as interested in each other as they are in him. Right now, sex with my masseuse or my sister-in-law. Oh shit. Oh shit, he's fantasizing about the sister-in-law, which, by the way, is not something you guys have to feel guilty about if you are, you know. It's one thing to have a fantasy, it's another thing to act on it. So whatever is appropriate for you, and whether you're in a non-monogamous relationship and that there is openness there to communicate that, cool. If there's not, and you want to stay monogamous but have your fantasy about your sister-in-law, like, that's okay. Something erotic in simplicity, waking up to my wife in reverse cowgirl. All right. Having sex with someone famous. Blindfolded sex. Smothering. Having my partner while they're in great shape. In a jacuzzi, but with her riding my face and squirting a lot. a lot. Beautiful women from every race. Ooh, that's interesting. Pegging. Is it weird that I don't have a sexual fantasy? I just want to be with a woman that I love and loves me too. All right, well, that can be a sexual fantasy. And it's not weird if you don't have something that feels so out there and super sexual. Meeting a strange woman at the gym and smelling her feet and having sweaty foot sex. All right, yeah. A lot of foot attraction on here. Oh gosh, too many to name. Getting dominated, pegged, rimmed, and my prostate milked? I never heard of that. I have to look into what that means. See, I'm learning on here. This is so cool. Watching my girlfriend and her best friend please each other. I join in with my girlfriend only. Okay, swinging. Tied up without a safe word, but agreed upon beforehand. Basically, raped by my partner. Okay, rape is a common fantasy as well. And as long as I would... Okay. So this is a fantasy. This isn't necessary, because in reality, if you were to make a rape fantasy real, you definitely want to have a safe word for sure. But I guess what this person is saying is they're actually raped in their fantasy, and like they don't need a safe word, obviously, because it's a fantasy, it's not real. So that with the rape fantasies, those are often common. Gangbang on one girl. Having my girlfriend tease. And I wonder before I go into that one, when I mentioned the rape fantasy, I think this is by a woman, actually. I'm trying to squint for the picture. It might be a couple or it might just be a woman. I can't tell with the picture based on how I saved the questions. But I wonder how common rape fantasies are for men versus women. That's interesting. All right. Having my girlfriend tease me with another guy or having another girl admiring her big boobs. The one about the sexy librarian that wants me to check out her book. Sex on the stack of books. All right. Library sex. I love to be watched. I want to fuck another woman while my wife watches. Oral sex that finishes. Yeah, that's the thing too. Like some people never have oral sex, so their top fantasy ends up being something they used to have all the time, or something they've never experimented with, but is very common to the majority of people. So you just never know what like truly excites someone. Also, a lot of people do have oral sex, but they don't finish or come from it because their body's not able to, which is fine. And that's normal. That's okay. So they fantasize about it. Having sex in nature without being covered and just being free. That sounds awesome. Just naked sex in the wild. Watching. Spontaneous encounter with a beautiful stranger in public where we might get caught. Yeah, that's a big one. Like the feeling of getting caught. Like you might get caught. I hate that. I think that is the most anxiety producing thing. It's funny. It's funny how different people are. It's really cool. A reverse gangbang. So 3+ women and myself. LOL. See, it's a sense of humor about it. Cuckold. I think I enjoy the idea of watching my partner orgasm intensely. Never did it though. All right, so that's interesting. He wants to have the cuckold experience because he wants to like watch from afar his partner orgasm intensely. Because while he's down there, or like in the moment, he probably can't, take all that in. So that's interesting. Staring deep in her blue-green eyes and having animalistic sex. Choking, biting, slapping, and squirting. All right, anal play for both. Role play. To be able to be alone with another man with us both wearing tan pantyhose. All right. there we go with the gender play, right? Gender bending, I'm sorry. Someone just says, I don't know. Like, I don't fucking know. Butt stuff. Villa by the ocean, being surprised by my wife in sexy lingerie, then a striptease, eye contact, dirty talk. This one says missionary cream pie, moaning and crying, emotional while ejaculating with your partner. All right. To be domed by a sensitive and gentle female, she gives me tasks, spanks me, and works my ass. Reverse cowgirl anal. At first kissing each other, later her body, then begin sex with different positions and then sleeping together. Pegging, threesome with 2 women in my tiny house. All right, not a sexual... All right, all right. I'm trying to find the more interesting ones because there were some that were like, oh shit. Hooking up with women and photographing us in explicit positions while we have sex. Licking a chocolatey vagina. Interesting. I hope my friend is on a work call in the other room. Like, I really hope it's not like a serious call they can hear me. I'm like, chocolatey vagina licking. Have sex in an elevator. Have sex someplace, be someplace in Fiji where I can keep her naked all day and just relax, have fun. Having sex with 10 women, getting head one by one, having sex in a row and coming on all faces. Oh shit. My wife and I tried minor role play. She was a saleswoman who needed to close the deal. Oh, that's hot. Role play is fun. She sneaks under the covers when I'm sleeping, pulls my shorts off, and works her way up there from there. All right. Here's someone like, I don't think I've ever had a sexual fantasy. This one is sleeping with a mature woman, a woman or mom who's 30 to 40. I'm 20. Anime. All right, anime sex. Yeah, that is definitely a thing. Yeah, not so much cucking. This guy says not so much cucking as swinging. I think it would be hot to watch my wife. Yeah, so some of these guys, I think, some of you guys, I think it's like, you think it's about cucking when really you just want to watch your wife get off, and not so much be like taken by another man. So, top level dominance with hitting. Never done it in that way, though. Yeah, I know there's a lot of guys who fear hitting or slapping when some women really enjoy it. So it's just about, that's where the communication comes in, right? Because if you can ask her if she's into that, and I would really only ask if she's into that based on signs you're getting from her that she might be. For instance, if she really, sorry, I have to plug my phone in. If she is really into like being spanked, for instance, and she's really into it and she wants to be hit really like hard, then most likely she wouldn't mind a little face slap, you know, and then you can kind of gauge what she likes in terms of being like slapped or hit in that sense in other areas of her body that are meaty, or, you know, where she could take it and it won't actually be too intense for her. Sometimes it is too intense though, and the woman consents to it, and so when it comes to BDSM, it's all about communication, because you never know how far a person actually wants to take it, but of course do your best to start with the light slaps, don't go crazy, and you need consent. So anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. All right, another fantasy. To be in a big group orgy, like 50 people, everyone doing it in one room at random. My girlfriend and I are working on having her squirt. We're both enjoying it. Okay, maybe that's just a random note to me. Yay! Feet. Someone just said feet. My girlfriend being a huge cock, submissive slut, and telling me about it. Okay. Let's see. Masturbation in front of literally the entire world. Interesting. Thigh-high socks and glasses. Her being completely submissive. Would love it to be sloppy as fuck during an at climax. My partner blindfolded and laying naked on the bed, and then another couple joined secretly. An amazing blowjob. Don't get much head from my partner, but when I do, I love it. Okay. Blowjob by 2 girls. To have a woman worship and seduce me. Be pegged by my wife. This is another one. A lot of, and I mentioned this before, a lot of heterosexual men feel like it's wrong for them to want anal play, or especially pegging, because that's actual insertion. And then they worry, like, am I totally straight if I want this? And yeah, you are. So don't worry about it. And if you are worrying about it, just keep your fantasy for now. Being caught by a stranger, having sex with my wife. Doing it outdoors. All right, let's find some of the more interesting. Threesome, proper threesome, gladiator role play. Big leather chair with cigar and glass of neat whiskey, getting slow deep throat. Oh, damn. Cream pie and keep going while my partner is in light bondage. Squirt and peeing has a place there too. Eating a stranger's pussy somewhere risky, then heading home to finish together. Okay, reverse gangbang. Being caught masturbating with her panties. To help my partner orgasm more. She's on medication. Aw. Okay, so see how, like, some of them, like I said, are very, like, just real, based on, like, oh man, I wish this could happen. And for most people, it seems like it could normally happen, but to this person, it's like a special thing. So they just start fantasizing again and again about it. Having sex with a sex therapist during a session. Just a normal ass threesome is someone else's answer. Gay sex with the monkey closing his eyes, his ears, and his mouth. Guys, fantasies are, fantasies. They don't even truly mean anything. I mean, they do. They mean what you're obviously turned on by. But yeah, there's no shame here. Oh, this one. Honestly, a woman wanting me to come inside her is my biggest turn on / fantasy. It's primal. Yeah, I could totally see that. Something I actually read recently, guys, in this book that's really good. He was saying that a very dominant, not even fantasy, but something to, I probably shouldn't be sharing this because it's like not the best. It's not like, all right, just take this and be smart about it. So a lot of women will get very turned on by a dominant man, or they'll feel very dominated by a man saying like they want to put a baby in her, right? So obviously this is very like risky. You have to know, I mean, it's not risky depending on what type of relationship you're in, but if you're going to play around with that, make sure it's with a woman who you eventually or like want to put a baby inside of, or would someday. Well, that's what I just said. You either like only do it with a woman who you eventually would want to put a baby in someday, plan on putting a baby in someday, or you're trying to in the moment put a baby inside of. So it's very powerful wordplay because it is super primal. It's like, oh, I'm gonna sometimes I just feel uncomfortable dirty talking. Like, put my cum inside you. But yeah, just saying something like, I'm gonna come inside you and put a fucking baby in you. You're like, saying something like that is a very primal turn on for a lot of women, but it can be very powerful to the point where like it will make her want a baby if she hasn't even wanted a baby. That's just what I heard based on like research and stuff. I thought it was interesting. All right. Adding a third with my wife, more on a permanent basis, not just for threesome's sake. All right, so like more non-monogamy there. Sauna sex. This guy said sauna sex, and then after it, he said pretty vanilla with like a sad face, like he was disappointed that that's his fantasy. Dude, you can change your fantasy. Like, if that fantasy's boring to you, or vanilla, and you don't want it to be vanilla, change it up, you know? There are also people, and I want to acknowledge the people, I didn't come across any of them yet, but I want to acknowledge them in case they're listening to this, that some people have fantasies about family members and smelling their underwear or, you know, having sex with them. And this may sound just extremely taboo to most people, but like I said, a fantasy is your own. All right. And you are safe to explore your fantasies. Fantasies are normal. And like I said, it just depends on if you choose to act on them and what that means for you to act on them. Okay. So I will just leave that there. Romantic and kinky, 69. Getting pegged by my wife, light choking. To orgasm on cue. Girls cum swapping. Okay. Having sex with beautiful trans women. This was interesting to me because I had a bunch of these responses pop up. And yeah, that was just, I didn't know that was such a common fantasy among hetero men. But it is. So if you guys have that fantasy, you are in company, if that makes sense. This guy said, I am attracted to Asian women. I dream about 2 geishas giving me a bath and massages and having sex. It sounds very peaceful to me. Threesome with a woman and transsexual woman. There's another one. Choking and submission. Doing it in an open swimming pool that's not ours. Laughing face. Do it in an elevator facing the skyline of a major city. Oh my God. Fear of heights kicking in. Anal play. Public changing rooms, doing it in there. Role playing with myself, wife, and a woman. I'm a police officer called to an apartment for loud music. This person just says, just slow, passionate kissing during lovemaking, major eye contact, connection, intimacy. I kind of wonder what I wonder what makes the majority of us, or I can see why the majority of us have very taboo fantasies, because it's like, oh shit, what would it be like if this happened? Like, this seems so out there, it would never happen. And it's kind of like a higher dopamine fix sexually, but it's just, I wonder if people who have more like realistic, I guess I could say, but maybe it's not realistic to them. I don't know, I'm thinking out loud, honestly. I'm thinking of like why, I'm trying to understand why people have just like very, like, I just want slow, passionate kissing during lovemaking, and that's like their top fantasy. Like, I wonder if it's just because they lost that and they want it again, or if they've never ever had that. It's just, you know? Because usually you don't fantasize about something you've had a lot of. Like, you do, like, I could see you guys fantasizing about a blowjob, but it's typically in a scenario that it wouldn't likely happen, right? It's like more specific. It's like the one I read of the guy in the chair with a cigar and like a neat whiskey and like in this certain location. It's just not likely to happen very continuously. Or it is, all right, I digress. Massage that turns into sex. Sex with transgender. Someone else watching. Squirters. Cheerleader. Group sex, hot wife. Being able to carry someone while railing them out. Oh, someone said zero gravity sex. That's cool. Granny sex. Right. Being put in a wedgie by my wife. Love the nerd role. That's awesome. This one guy's like, I'm boring. It's just office sex. Change it up. Swap. There's a lot of swapping. Ejaculate in my wife's mouth during oral sex. She thinks it's gross and finishes me manually. Yeah, I think that's a common one because there are a lot of women who don't want to do that. Anal. A lot of anal. A lot of trans. Hi, kitty. There's some about me. This is very awkward as I read through these. I've just realized I have to have a sense of humor doing this job and talking to men about sex all day, because although the majority of you are very respectful and helpful in terms of like sharing your honest opinions, there's a lot of perverted shit I have to deal with too. But I can't be one of those women who's just like, oh, men are fucking pigs, because the majority of you are not. So it's just reminding myself, like, you know what? I'm going to take this as a compliment for now. Like, put it to the side. Just laugh it off. All right. Another sister-in-law. A woman sitting on my face while I'm tied to the bed. Another guy said, I just want to cuddle. I'm so touch-starved, but I have trouble making connections because I'm autistic. Yeah. And then this guy's like, I'd settle for a BJ from my wife. And then this guy says, number 1, being dominated. Number 2, sex in different locations. Number 3, multiple women using me. Getting dominated by a cougar who knows what she's doing. Outdoors under a waterfall. Frequent cum swallowing by my lover. To fuck a celebrity. I really want my girlfriend to peg me. Sex in space. Cool, there's so many more. I love banging a girl with a dress on. More threesomes. My wife squirting all over me. Swinging, pegging, being looked everywhere. I'm straight, but it's sucking the dick of a trans woman. Don't know why, but I get rock hard thinking about it. And he put a smiley. Okay. Cool. Deep throat. And you know what I've realized, guys? Like, when I first started studying sexology, I got very triggered in a lot of different ways. Like some things I was just like, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that. Like this is awkward. This makes me feel uncomfortable. Or as my sister would say, uncomfy. And I was just not comfortable. And I literally like didn't want to learn. And I caught myself being like, all right, if I'm going to work with other people, I'm going to help other people, I have to get over this shit. Like, you know, I have to have an open mindset and I have to be able to talk about these things. So I have to move through these triggers and I have to understand why I have them. And that was a really interesting experience. It still is. I'm still studying this stuff and learning that there are things that make me uncomfortable that are normal and healthy. And I have to realize that, especially if I'm going to teach in this area. So some of you guys may be uncomfortable hearing some of these, and that's okay. Like, that's normal too. It doesn't have to be your fantasy, and you're not teaching it, so you don't have to move through your triggers or understand it. But I think just knowing that it's possible to see past the discomfort just kind of makes you more comfortable with yourself. So I just encourage you to just have an open mind and just, if it's not for you, that's fine. Doesn't mean have an open mind means you try it. It just means have an open mind knowing that everyone is different. And I think there's power in understanding that everyone is different sexually, because that's when you start to ask more questions and get more curious about your partner and about your own sexuality and your own sexual expression and your own sexual needs. So to be open in terms of just understanding that people have different fantasies, different needs, wants, desires, etc., fetishes, allows you to be more open with yourself, is what I'm trying to get to. So just keep that in mind. And let me just read a couple more. Oh, ball busting. Wait, this this one was actually very common. They must be all towards the bottom, the ball busting ones, because eating my own cream pie. That's another one. Having anal. Record ourselves, then get off to it later. Getting woken up by a BJ. Yeah, so going back to the ball busting, there are a lot of guys who have fantasies of like a woman stepping on their balls with high heels. And that is another one I was not aware of was a common fantasy. But it is here. A threesome with emotionally centered women, no drama, just loving interaction. Oh yeah, that is definitely a fantasy. Less likely to happen in reality, but it can happen for sure. But it doesn't have to happen. It's your fantasy, right? Sorry, this whole podcast is me like thinking out loud and sharing these things with you. Making two chicks climax at the same time. All right, that's a good one. Oh, I like this one. I imagine working on a car on a roller. Female walks up and wants to talk. I roll out from under the car and she's wearing a skirt and sits on my face. I eat my way to her heart. I love that. Love the description. And I would encourage you guys too, while you're listening to these, like, if you feel like you don't have a good fantasy or you're like bored by your own fantasy, ask yourself why. Like, why are you putting limits on yourself sexually when it comes to like your mental state? You know what I mean? And like, how can you be a little more descriptive with it and have fun with it? I think that there are a lot of guys who want to stop watching as much porn as they're watching. And something that can help do that is having exciting fantasies to go to in your head. Because if you have a fantasy to go to that's just like your fantasy, it's more personal. You tend to get more turned on by it because you're not watching other people. You're actually having your own experience in your head that you replay, and it can become so real for you. And yeah, it's a really great way to kind of steer away from porn and have more of your own personal fantasy experience. So that's just something to keep in mind. being dominated by a girl taller than 6 foot. Librarian in library, tied up with group sex. My wife in lingerie and glasses and a facial because she wants me to, not because I ask her to. She wants me to, not because I ask her to. Here's one. To be controlled and overpowered by women by hitting and squeezing my balls. See, there's another one. There's a bunch of those. Another person is like, is it weird if I don't have any fantasies? So, yeah, definitely some confusion around, like, should I have a wild, crazy fantasy? I'm like, not necessarily, but that's what's cool about it. It's your own. You get to decide, and you get to decide exactly what it is, what it looks like. A 3-way would be fun, but I really just want my balls and cock sucked at the same time. That's what another guy says. Okay. Yeah, okay. Being handcuffed and blindfolded while receiving head. Mutual masturbation. 69 until we both come. Open relationship that makes us want each other more. She lets me try anal and light bondage. Spontaneously coming home and finding my wife ready and waiting for me naked, completely ready. Another guy says, I feel dirty saying this. I like being degraded or put down a little. Yeah, you could feel dirty if you like feeling dirty, if that's a good association or connotation, but don't feel bad about wanting that. That is so normal. My fantasy is to be able to tie a girl up and have sex with her. My ex allowed me to do that to her. Cool. That's hot. Butt stuff. Blowjob / hand job on a milking table. To be tied up and used by a room full of women. To tie up my partner. Have them be very vulnerable. To be in complete control. It's a level of trust I've always wanted. Yeah, that's like the interesting thing, and we're going to talk about this more. I'll talk about this more. Is BDSM, and the major point around BDSM is trust. It's all about trust. And that's why there's so much communication during this form of play, because things can go very wrong if you don't communicate, right? So it's like this trust and this communication that's very seriously built within the guidelines of BDSM. So I'm excited to learn more about that in sexology, because that's in a coming up lesson or module of mine, and I think you guys will really enjoy information on that. So yeah, okay, to be worshipped. Okay, yeah. So, I'm going to stop here. And I hope that was helpful. I hope that just gave you either some clarity on fantasies or what you maybe want to change your fantasy to. Because there's a lot of you who are obviously bored with your fantasies. And kind of explore that. Like, give yourself some time to think on, like, all right, what turns me on most? Like, if I could really have anything sexual, sex-related to happen to me, what do I think would turn me on most? What would be like the ultimate? You know, I think sometimes, like, when you have a very inactive sex life, it's hard to even dream of things, or you don't even want to go there because it's so far from reality. So it's kind of depressing to have a fantasy. I've heard that before, but I've also heard that it keeps people very sexually alive to hold a very descriptive fantasy that excites them, especially in a relationship when they're not getting much sex. So fantasies are great. They are normal. They could be very fun. Remember that you are safe to have them. You are normal to have them. You are free to have them. And whether you act on them or communicate them with other people or try to make them happen in reality, that's another story, right? That's next level of a fantasy. But for now, just know that you are normal. I like doing the Q&As. I will do more on Instagram, so follow me over there if you're not yet. And otherwise, have an amazing morning, evening, or night, wherever you are in the world, and I will talk to you soon. I hope this episode helped you. If it did, I would love for you to leave me an iTunes review. It would mean the world to me. You can also screenshot your favorite episodes and tag me on Instagram at Steph Ganowski. And before I go, remember, your sex life is as good as you make it out to be. Until next time.